Welcome to Everything is Everything. For the last time, I'm Amit and this is Ajay. And not for we are not Amit and Ajay for the last time. I will continue to be Amit. He will continue to be Ajay. But this is our last episode of Everything is Everything for the moment. And we thought we'll do like a pleasant goodbye, look back a little bit, talk about our reasons why we are bringing this to an end, and kind of talk about the things that we've learned from doing the show. So, Ajay, both of us actually have reasons for not doing this anymore, and it so happened that we had a chat and they coincided. So we said, "ठीक है, all good things come to an end. Better things lie ahead of both of us." So, you want to share your reasons with our gentle listeners?
My biggest reason, so I have one big reason and I have a less big reason. My big reason is that I think I have said what I wanted to say. Okay, so I have one lifetime of knowledge. I have only one lifetime of knowledge, and I've always been saying to you that there aren't that many nice, complete episodes that one can make. So I have a lifetime in hiking, and that gives an episode. You have a lifetime in cycling, and that gives an episode. You have a lifetime in poker, and that gives an episode. And one can't live more lives and create these bodies of knowledge. So that is the main reason that I feel I had certain things to say, and I am at the end of that. And the other reason is that it is very, very difficult. It is very costly. And perhaps there's a connection that as one steps away from the very familiar lifetime knowledge material, the difficulty levels of doing this were going up. And on this show, I have promised a book project, a book of taxes by Vijay Kelkar, Arvind Modi, and me, and I have many other research papers. And I just got into a whole tangle in early December. We are running 3 conferences, and it is just a grueling pace. So I thought it's optimal to stop here. I think we've built a great body of work. We'll talk about it a bit more, but it is time to stop.
Yeah, and you said you're writing that book in so many research papers. When you said so many, I was hoping you're going to say so many books because, gentle readers, I've been convincing him to do various books that are in this man, Invisible Infrastructure, and various others. So hopefully they will happen. Let me share my reasons for it. I've always been really bloody minded about, once you start something, you just take it through where it's got to go. The Seen and the Unseen was weekly for 7 years and is now fortnightly. I never missed a scheduled release. Various incidents happened in my life, but I never missed, a Monday where it had to come out. Similarly, with Everything is Everything, we have never missed a release. It's always Friday, 12 o'clock, the episode comes out. Once it had to go to Saturday very early on, but otherwise, always Friday, 12 o'clock, it came out. Even when I was in hospital getting a procedure done, or Ajay broke his leg, and etc., etc., all kinds of things have happened to us, we've done it. But what was also happening was that, like what Ajay just said, it was getting difficult in the sense it was taking up a lot of my bandwidth. It wasn't difficult in terms of the actual logistics. Like the way we would do it is once in 6 weeks, we would gather at a friend's farmhouse and we would. Over 3 days, we would shoot 6 episodes, 2 episodes on each day. So it was just 3 days every 6 weeks. It wasn't a big deal. But I also produced the show. So therefore, I would create, after Namsita would send the rough cut to me, I would create the list of inserts that you see on the screen right now with all of these, painstaking details. And then Namsita and I would be chatting over the edit every day. We'd be in touch, and then the thing would release on Friday, and it was rinse and repeat every week, and it was taking up mind space. And as you know, there are other things I want to do. You've been on my case that, hey, write that book, write this book, etc., etc. But I just found that even though I can bank episodes of the Seen and the Unseen, and that's fortnightly now, so less stress, this will just run my mind all the time. And I just didn't want to stop this because I love the show. Ajay and I both love the show. We didn't want to stop it. On our own, we would not have stopped the show. But then when we chatted, I found he's got reasons, I've got reasons. We said, you know what, fine. We don't have to hold on to this. Good things come to an end, but more good things are born out of that. No man steps in the same river twice. And it's been a beautiful show. We've really enjoyed hanging out. We've really enjoyed doing this. So yeah, so that's why the sad news before you. You have all our episodes so far, 2.5 years of work to go through. And but we also have our lives to live, and we have to consider the trade-offs that we are making. So yeah, it's better to kind of end on a note where we can look back with happiness and we can look ahead in our lives.
Amit, when I look back, I'm truly happy and proud about what we did. So, last few days are this bittersweet mode of coming to the end of this. And both of us, I'm sure you are also looking back and looking at this edifice. So, I want to claim something important that we did. Okay, we come from a country where statism is all pervasive. By default, for everybody, government is the answer. State coercion, more and more state coercion, is the way in which everything is approached and everything is done. When people have thought at a deeper level about reimagining this country in a different way, it has often been done in a small piecemeal manner. And actually, any one small piecemeal element doesn't quite work because all the other elements are also being distorted by a state dominated way. I feel Everything is Everything has done something good and unique, that it represents a complete picture. It represents a single way of thinking where we put the people first, where we put freedom and consent and agency at the heart of the story, that is the engine of human progress. That is the engine of how we as individuals and as a country make progress. And yeah, we need a state, and the state needs to do certain things, but it's not the essence. And I think our unique contribution has been that we've been able to do this broad sweep of many different subjects and bring a consistent intellectual toolkit to apply to many different things. And I feel that hasn't been done before. So I mean, I've written many papers, done 3 books, but I've never seen this kind of internally consistent picture across more than 100 episodes, where we come at many different things one at a time. I want to escalate one step bigger. Okay, so there is a very crude model in economics, which is called the solo model. It tells a story where output is a function of labor and capital. Okay, so you're supposed to put some amount of labor and some amount of capital, and then you get GDP out of it. And there is one magic number in there, which is productivity. And in the early years after independence, people thought that, oh, to get to being a rich country, you need to put a lot of people to work and you need to get a lot of capital. Okay, so people view this in a causal way, that if you put capital and if you put labor, then you will get GDP and you need to improve the productivity. I think over the last 20 years, we are understanding that there is something profoundly missing in this story. Okay, in this story, start at labor. Okay, here we are in India with an employment rate of something like 36 or 38%. 38% of the persons of age 16 to 64, which is universally considered the labor force, is working. Okay, in a country like China, this ratio is double. So the problem is not that you don't have people in the country. The problem is that the people are not being put to work. And so there's no shortage of labor in a way. There are people, but the people are not being harnessed. And so you've got to go to the deeper question, that why does firm formation not happen? What hinders the ability of people to come up with business models which use the labor and get it going? Similarly, on the capital, okay, there is infinite capital in the world economy. Why are Indian policymakers not able to do that capital account opening, bring down the cost of capital in India, and get an infinite gain of more capital going into the countries? Why does that not happen? And then the third piece, that productivity. This is about the emergence of high productivity firms. What makes the firms? What is this black box called a firm? What creates the incentives for high capability firms to come about? I feel we've got to start thinking about all these things at a deeper level. That simple development economics or growth economics, where you think about the amount of capital, the amount of labor, some productivity, you get GDP. It's missing the essence of what makes that capital happen. It is the problems of the financial system and the lack of openness of the capital account. What makes the Indian employment rate perhaps half of what it ought to be, which is about the working of the firms and the lack of firm formation? And what makes the productivity of the Indian firms low? which is 1,000 elements of the Indian institutional apparatus, which don't create the correct checks and balances and the creative destruction through which high quality firms will emerge. I feel if we pull together EIE, we've told this story. We've told this biggest of all stories, that why is India poor? Why is capital and labor not getting mobilized into high quality firms to make a successful, prosperous country? And I think that's nice.
In a sense, what we've, I think, done with this show is fused public purpose with private passion. Like, this is everything that you spoke about is points to a public purpose, but it's something that you've been passionate about all your life. And it's pretty much the same with me, but I also have other private passions, which we've kind of spoken about on the show. I used to think of the seen and the unseen earlier and think of it as not a series of discrete conversations, but one long conversation spreading across many, many episodes. And in the hundred and something episodes of Everything is Everything, that's kind of been the case, that there are threads you can pull, that there is a thread of episodes on the state. Episode 25 was foundational, 26 was foundational, the public choice episode, I think 34 or 37, that was foundational. So if you want to think about the state and society and the relationship between them, I think there are a bunch of episodes that come together for that. Equally, firms, right? The centrality of firms to growth is something that I hadn't fully internalized till I started doing Everything is Everything with you. And again, we have a bunch of great episodes on firms that tie together. So over the months at different points, we've tackled different aspects of it. Equally, we have strong foundational episodes on basic subjects like The Beauty of Finance, episode 21, or our episode on education, where I think both of us put a lifetime of synthesized learning and thinking about education into that one episode, and it's one of our most popular episodes for a reason. Equally, we did our episode on development economics, something both you and I feel very strongly about, and the world today is following the wrong fashions. We have to ask, why is India poor? What can we do about it? So I'd urge you, gentle listeners, check out that episode. That has a lot. An early episode on why freedom matters, which is really India's economic history story. Equally, you worked in a bunch of areas really deeply, and you shared all of that knowledge in a series of episodes, for example, on Indian finance, a journey of Indian finance, and topics within that like bankruptcy, topics within that like inflation targeting, and we've constantly gone back to basic principles. Sometimes we've looked at the great papers of the past, like four papers that changed the world, right? So sometimes we've looked at counterintuitive ways of thinking about the world, like our episode on luxury beliefs. I have
And
gone
one of
into
the best episodes, The Art of Reading.
the art of reading, where we sort of went into our private passions, like the art of reading, certainly because we both love books, and that was a chance to talk about why and how you can read better. In my case, I had a couple of episodes on chess. The second one was really more life lessons in chess. It never really took off. I don't know why, because I love that episode. We spoke about our atheism. I had an episode on cricket. We had an episode on poker. And so we've just done a bunch of things where we freewheeled around. We've had episodes where, both of us are not just dry people who are into ideas and abstract thoughts. We are inspired by stories. Stories illuminate the world. So we had a bunch of episodes on stories that should be films. So it wasn't just serious stuff. We had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching this.
Amit, you built Seen and the Unseen. You built Everything is Everything. We have an episode on the art of podcasting. Can you look back at this whole story and look for higher order lessons and ideas that should go back to us and to our gentle readers?
I won't talk about the seen and the unseen now. That's a separate journey. I've spoken about that before, most notably in our Art of Podcasting episode. I want to talk about Everything is Everything. This was so dear to me, not just because we created a great product, but also that the learnings in it shaped me and changed who I was. At least didn't there were no radical new things I learned from the show, but a lot of vague ideas I had was solidified and my belief in them was strengthened. Number one, have a bias for action. You and I spoke about doing this show. I was trying to convince you we should do a show together some 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I forget when. We were at a conference in Udaipur. And And I've discussed many ideas with many people over the years. I literally have 50 YouTube ideas. Like in my Rome research, I have, a creative ideas folder where there are many, many ideas, solo vlog, do a show with this person, etc., etc. But the difference is that you and I took action. We went into it, we said, let's just start. We knew we would be imperfect at the start. We knew that it would probably be shit. Some early moments make us cringe. But we said, no, no, we got to start. And once we started, once we established that cadence, that, okay, every Friday, 12 o'clock it drops, we stuck to that. And only through iteration do you get better. And the important thing is that you need a place to begin. And we began. So that's something I tell all creators. And this is a dangerous phrase, bias for action, because as Ajay has often pointed out, when it comes to the state, you don't want a bias for action. You want a gradual process of, many stakeholders involved. You get a diversity of opinions, and then you should act, because every act by the state is deeply consequential. But when it comes to individual creators, I believe the biggest lesson that has been reinforced by Everything is Everything is that yes, bias for action is good, go for it. My second lesson is something that our friend Vinay Sitapati once told me in an old episode of The Seen and the Unseen, where I was talking about his, how he wrote the book. And he said, don't let perfection get in the way of production. And that's a beautiful lesson. Too often, what happens is that when we embark upon something, we face a trade off between getting it done and getting it right. And what I've always emphasized is that in the creator economy, getting it done is important. In fact, getting it done is the path to getting it right. Production is a path to perfection. You only become good at something by iterating again and again and again and again. And therefore, you should not let perfection get in the way. Our early episodes, actually all our episodes to some extent have something or the other wrong with them. I especially must tell you, gentle reader, I don't like the way I look on camera. In my seen unseen days, I used to say I have a face for audio. So I would often cringe and still cringe, when I would look at footage. But I just told myself that, boss, stop getting conscious. We got to get the job done. We got to put it out. Don't worry. कोई frame अच्छा नहीं है या मैंने कुछ गलत बोल दिया है. Because in my written pieces, there is always one typo that creeps through. Always. It's unavoidable. Right? That's just me. And generally, if they're published online, some reader within an hour will say, अरे ये typo है, and I correct it. So similarly, when we speak, there are always typos. Verbal typos will just happen. And you can cringe, or you can say that just let it go. समझने वाले समझ जाएंगे. Viewers are watching in good faith. It doesn't matter. Just kind of go with it. So that's an important lesson I'd give to all your creators, that whatever you're doing, production over perfection, just keep getting it out. And a related frame I'll share, part of the same point really, is economist talk of stock and flow. Right? So stock is like wealth, it's just there, and flow is like your income. It comes, it comes, it comes. So flow, हर महीने check आता है. And I have applied that concept to the creator economy, where you have stock and flow, where stock is something that will last for a long time, like the books you write, like In Service of the Republic, and obviously your great book on taxation that is coming up with Arvind. And I'm fully convinced it's going to be great. So no doubt about that. So that is stock. That remains. Future generations learn from it. Like in a very different context, I love this metaphor by Philip Larkin from his poem "This Be the Verse," where he says, "Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf." Now I think of knowledge also as a coastal shelf. That there are layers and layers of knowledge on it, and all our stock goes into those layers of knowledge. The flow doesn't. Flow is different. Flow is when you're doing a weekly column. Flow is when you're doing a blog post. Flow is when you're doing episodes of this show. Though episodes of this show, in a sense, the show put together, as Ajay expressed in the last chapter, is also a stock of knowledge. It's a repository. But at the same time, the approach you have to take to it is that it's flow. You don't aim for perfection there. You can aim for perfection in your book, because they will last for, they will outlive you. But for this, you just have to think aloud in real time, as it were. Sometimes you have to get it out there. One, the process of getting it out there, of expressing yourself, makes you a better thinker. And two, the feedback that you get from people who watch it, and they will often point out little holes in your argument or gaps in your knowledge, and that's also useful. So flow is important, and you have to be clear about what you're doing. Is it mainly stock or is it mainly flow? If it's a book, you can agitate over it, you can think about it, you can try to make it perfect. But if it is flow, if you're writing a column, if you're doing a blog post, if you're writing a newsletter post, if you're doing a show like this, just keep getting it out, just keep getting it out. That's what you need to sharpen the mind and keep the creative muscle going. My third learning And again, something that I became convinced of back in the days when the seen and the unseen took off is that it's better to be loved by a few than liked by many. This is a phraseology used by Paul Graham in the context of startups. I fully believe in this. Loved by a few, is better than being liked by many. So you have less numbers, but you have far deeper engagement, and that deeper engagement manifests itself in the love that people give to you. So often I get stopped by someone at an airport or a Starbucks, or like every time I go to Blossom's bookstore in Bangalore, two people are going to come up to me, and I guess that is a hub of the kind of people who listen to Seen Unseen or watch Everything is Everything. And that's great. That depth of engagement is great. They're more willing to buy the other things you do, like your courses, expensive or otherwise, because they trust you. That credibility is there. YouTube comments can often be all over the place, but our comment section, I'm proud to report, is just wonderful. So thank you all, because the kind of discourse you get there, the polite disagreements, people adding different points of view. I have met three or four people just because they've left really interesting comments and reached out later. So the quality of discourse, and I think we made a difference there. And that happens if you're loved by a few and liked by many. If you aim to be liked by many people, like if you're watching this, you might think that, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel. Let me see what is trending. I'll make a video on that. And I guarantee you that is a path to mediocrity. Guarantee you, everybody is chasing that. Rather than that, embrace yourself, be who you are, and things will work out. Which takes me to my next point. And my next point is that it is both easy and rewarding to be authentic. The hardest thing in the world is to pretend to be someone else. Yeah, you and I have never pretended to be anybody else. We are who we are, with all our imperfections and attitudes and whatever, and our typos. So thank you for, tolerating all my fumbles. But we are who we are. And in the long run, if you're going to do something for a long time, a any pretense that you put up will lead to content that is contrived. Others will see through it. It will not be interesting. So it is just too difficult. It is far easier to just be yourself, and it is ultimately far more rewarding to just be yourself. That when you are yourself, then people make that human connection. A story I keep going back to is I had once recorded an episode with Abhinandan Sekri of The Seen and the Unseen, and someone watching that said that I felt so much that I'm sitting with two friends and chatting in my living room that at one point I interrupted you. And I love that story because it tells you the intimacy of the medium. There was a time when stars were larger than life, but today is such an intimate medium. We have an episode on the creator economy also where I talk about some of this. But today it's an intimate medium, and that's beautiful. So if you're starting off as a creator, I would advise you just be yourself. One, it is easy, and B, that is the only thing that people will relate to, and that is the only unique thing about you. Like each of us, the only thing we have that sets us apart from the other 8 billion people on this planet is that I am I. You are you. We can't pretend to be anything else. So just embrace yourself, own yourself, and it'll be fine. My fifth point is that really it is a community which matters. You and I have had so many good conversations with people who watch the show. They've shared ideas, they have disagreed, they've said, what about this? What about that? They've left comments, they've met us in person, etc., etc. And in the end, that community is what matters, that community is deep. Even if you look at it from a monetary angle, what I am convinced about is that if you are a creator and you want to monetize, you can only monetize the community, the people who really care about you. Advertising will die. I've often spoken about how if you look at the 1990s model for a creator, let's say I want to write in the 1990s. I want to write 800-word articles, or I want to share my opinions. I, sell an article to the Indian Express. I have to go through a gatekeeper. There's a particular form I have to stick to. There's a particular house style I have to cater to. I have to be in the news cycle, like write about something in the news cycle. Is restrictive. I'll only come out once in a while because they won't let me write every day for them. And they aggregate such content and they use it to gather eyeballs, and then they sell those eyeballs to advertisers, and I get a tiny chunk of that. So I want to tell you that whole model is gone. It's gone, and there's a lag between new institutions coming up, new ways of being coming up. But the two middlemen there, the Times of India and the advertiser, are gone. Today, you're reaching your viewer directly, your gentle readers directly, and if they care about you, they'll be happy to pay. Because whenever I read an article by you, Ajay Shah, I'm actually paying for it. Even if it's free on the internet, I'm giving it my time and attention. My time and attention are worth something. My time is worth money. My attention is equals to energy. I'm spending that on you. I value the content. If I had a way to pay for it, I would. And increasingly, that is turning out to be the case. So what I've realized is that the real value is in community. And quite honestly, we haven't even bothered to try and monetize our community in the 100 different ways that are out there, because that's not the point. The point is you kind of building that community, enriching the discourse, playing to that higher purpose, that's what really matters. My sixth point is that if you are a creator today, you have so much freedom, and everything is an example of that. Like if we took a show like this to mainstream media, they would laugh us out of the room. That what you're going to talk about inflation targeting, and you're going to talk about bankruptcy code, and two random people talking about an hour, and you aren't even like glamorous, amazing people. Like it's not content.
And neither is a good looking woman.
Neither of us is a good-looking woman, though. I think your good looks and your shirts are legendary. But quite apart from that, uh, that's not an angle. Well, or consider the seen and the unseen. You're going to have 10-hour conversations with boring economists. Like what the hell? But the thing is that we have the means of production at our hand. We wanted to do something, we did it. Right? We didn't have to go through a gatekeeper. We had the means of production at our hands. We didn't have to worry about form. I wanted to make scene unseen 8 hours. We thought we'll do the show 1 hour. Sometimes you're in the mood. We are like, let's take it to 90 minutes, 2 hours. Sometimes you're in the mood. We are like, let's split it into 2 episodes. We do what we want. We have the freedom of form. We have the freedom of talking about what we want to talk about. Would a mainstream channel take an episode like, the human sexuality episode we did? I'm not sure. But we can do whatever we want because it is us. We can be authentic. We can throw things at the wall. We can be ourselves. We can discover ourselves in the process of experimenting with who we are and how we express that. So I think that's amazing. That's a huge lesson that we've learned from Everything is Everything, and that's a lesson I encourage all of you to sort of take forward. If you are a creative person, and a creative person doesn't only mean writer, filmmaker. You could be creating educational content. You could be thinking in creative ways about what to do in the social sector. It doesn't actually mean putting audiovisual out there or putting creative product out there. All of us are creative in different ways. And now we are empowered by technology and all these wonderful tools, and that just makes me really happy. And my final point is playing the long game. Right? When we started, you and I had a pack, gentle readers. I sat Ajay down and I convinced him that here is a deal. We are going to do this for 2 years without looking at the numbers. Now, this man did not obey me. He kept looking at the analytics. But my thinking was for 2 years, we won't look at the numbers. I took inspiration from something Ali Abdal once said in one of his episodes, that he said, if you're starting a YouTube channel, say you're doing 2 episodes a week, for 2 years, just don't look at the numbers. Right? And the reason for that is profound and deep, and something that I have thought about a lot and discovered myself is that the moment you aim for validation, the moment outside applause matters to you, you start dumbing yourself down. You start not being yourself. You move away from the authenticity that makes you special, that makes your journey relatable. And if validation matters to you, it will never come at the start because you will suck at the start, right? You learn and get better only by constant iteration, right? When we started, you were so awkward and clumsy, Ajay Shah. Today, you're a consummate professional. Put a camera in front of Ajay Shah and he's like nailing it. So to make that journey to excellence, you have to stop caring about what other people think. You have to be internally driven. So my lesson here is also a lesson in public policy you have shared and we have spoken about, which is play the long game, right? Play the long game. Don't think about, I want to get a great episode out now. What will my friends say? Oh, look, the lighting isn't good. Or, oh, look, I'm looking so fat or whatever. Get that out of the way. You're playing the long game. You're leaving a body of work that will last you for a long time. A dear friend of mine who went on to start a successful podcast once asked me back in the a few years ago when the seen and the unseen was doing well, what advice would I have to give her? And I told her that here's my advice. Don't think of what your audience will consume on episode 1. Think of what they will binge at episode 100, right? Build that body of work. It is a repository. And in a sense, it is flow becoming stock. Build that body of work, play the long game. And that's my final lesson. We've played the long game with this show. We've left it out there. In a sense, it isn't over because these episodes are still out there for you, for everyone to watch. And in our own lives, we continue to play the long game.
Everything dies, baby, that's a fact. Everything that dies, someday it comes back. I don't see this as a end for Everything is Everything. Okay, so I think you have the energy, the creativity, the knowledge, the passion to resurrect this in various ways. And I dearly, dearly hope that you will do so. That there is something here in terms of the ethos, the people, the audience, and you must apply yourself and resurrect this.
No, thank you for that thought. Um, I do want to do more things on YouTube one day, but for the reasons I gave at the start of the show, this is a time to take a pause and do some writing and kind of get some chill back in my life. Various people have said that don't let the show die, do it with someone else. And someone both of us deeply admire, Pranay, immediately came to mind, Pranay Kotasane. I chatted with him, and his feeling, and I kind of agree with him, is that everything is you and me. People associate it with us. I'll do a separate product one day with Pranay. We'll do a fun product. There'll be Bollywood, there'll be Hindi, there'll be many other things. And it just feels kind of odd to do it under this particular name. And people are saying, oh, you built a brand and why waste the algorithm? But I mean, my plan for the channel always was there'll be different shows. This will be one of them. There'll be other shows on the same channel. So I guess, if you're following us, please hit follow again, because I will do more work at some point in time in the indeterminate future. So it'll come on this channel. But everything is everything. I feel for that particular brand, the journey is done. There's no need to be nostalgic. The journey's been great. We've learned a lot. We are, a part of us will always be, what the show has given us. So thank you, Ajay, for coming on our journey with me. It's been good.
Thank you, Amit, for bringing me into this journey.